Scotland, the land of the ancient Greeks? Well, I never knew that, but we're going to examine this together. It seems so. Now, a lot of us have roots from Europe. A lot of us have roots from Scotland, Ireland, Britain, and we never knew that we may also have Greek roots. Scotland, the land of ancient Greeks. In the Greek language, skotos or skotos with a C or a K in Greek means darkness. Now, Scotland etymologically means the land of darkness, because of course it's not that sunny there compared to what it is in Greece for the Greeks. The language, as many years pass, always tells the truth. When the Minoans and the Mycenaeans were looking for tin, they found a large amount of this in the islands north of the Heraclidae columns, the columns of Hercules, as we know in the passage of Gibraltar. These islands were named Kassiteridis Islands. Kassiteridis Nisus, meaning kassiteros, meaning tin. And now, this is what trade used to go on between the Mediterranean area, which was filled with trade from all over the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, and they had shipping going all the way to the British Isles. They would trade things from the Mediterranean. The sunny climates there would give them olives, olive oil, wine, grapes, and marble, of course, and silver, and gold, all right. But the thing for everyday use, obviously, they also had very good clay, and they would make ceramic utensils. They would trade all these for the tin that they had in the British Isles. A tin, of course, for household utensils and whatever else they would need it for. Now, we also know that one of the relatives of our Lord Jesus Christ, High Priest Joseph of Arimathea, the high priest that gave his never-used tomb where our Lord was buried, the tomb of Christ's resurrection, which is, of course, today in Jerusalem, belonged to High Priest Joseph of Arimathea, who was one of the uncles, one of Christ's uncles, biological uncles. He had a shipping company, and his shipping company had trade with the British Isles, and he would trade, as we said before, olives, grapes, wine, olive oil, things produced from the Mediterranean, and along with, as we said, ceramic utensils, and he would bring back tin for selling in the Mediterranean area. So he would bring to Scotland and the British Isles things from the Mediterranean, and lemons, citrus fruit like that they didn't have in England, in the British Isles, and he would bring back the valuable tin that was mined in these areas. Now, kassiteros, meaning tin. The language always tells the truth. Now, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, we know, lived in the Peloponnese. The Mycenaeans, we know from Helen of Troy, the Trojan War, etc. When the Minoans and Mycenaeans were looking for tin, they found it in large amounts in the islands north of the Heraclidae columns. These islands were named Kassiteridis Islands, Kassiteridis Nisus. The Greeks arrived there in the southwestern part of England, southwest meaning, of course, we know, beautiful areas, Cornwall and Wales. They were always caught in the strong winds, and so they named that peninsula Keras of Aeolos. Aeolos being the king of the winds. The Keras meaning the horn of Aeolos, meaning the power of Aeolos. When the Romans later had the sovereignty of this area, they gave the same name to that region. The difference is that the Romans' name for Keras is horn. Horn Aelu. And there, with a little alteration, Corn Aeolus, Cornwalls, Cornwallis, Cornwallis, Cornwallis. Corn for Caris from the Romans, Cornwallis, and they reached us today to be called the name of that area of southwest England known as, we all know, Cornwall. And the Greeks above that area called it Scotland because of the fog and darkness that prevailed there. We said that before, Scotland. Now, when the British were mapping all this area, and they asked how the locals called the British, they called the islands, the natives answered Trisnisi, meaning 3 islands. Trisnisi meaning, Tris meaning 3, Nisi meaning islands. And the locals called the islands, the natives called the area Trisnisi. A little below, Iona, or native Scotia, reminds you of Iones, the ancient Greek tribe of the Ionians. And we know Iona from the Ionian Sea as well, just to the right to the area called Argylos, Greek word meaning Argyle, below the town of Ayr in Scotland. Ayr in Greek meaning Aera, meaning wind, windy area. And you see that Ayr in the map of Scotland is just above Hadrian's Wall. Northumberland is to the west of southwest of Glasgow and just northwest of Dumfries, just across from North Island, Belfast, if you see it on the map. Amazing, isn't it? So it is a fact that the Scots and the Irish consider, based on their ancient mythology, that their ancestors were in fact Mycenaeans. Mycenaeans. Now we know that Scotland was a colony of Ireland. So yes, they are relatives. The Scots and the Irish are definitely relatives. They have the same craziness that, in a good sense that is, that the Greeks of the Peloponnese have. And they say that, you're from the Peloponnese, you must be a little bit touched. And we can always go back to, for example, the movie Braveheart, and we know that the friend and protector of Wallace was Irish. And he says, I don't know about you, but God told me he was the Irishman talking to God, if you remember who he was. Now, okay, that kind of a temperament that the Scots and the Irish have is still in their DNA and still comes from the same type of temperament from the Greeks from the Peloponnese, the area around today's Nafplio, which is ancient Argos, and that's the area of where the Helen of Troy was, around just south of Corinth. It's about half an hour from Corinth south towards Mycenae, the area of the ancient theater of Epidaurus. Now, in 1991, in the estuary of the river Ems, in Bay Bix Mare Perry in northern England, there was a discovery made. They discovered the remains of a shipwreck, an ancient shipwreck, a shipwreck that was carrying bars of cassiterite, meaning bars of tin. That's where the tin would come from. A dating method with carbon-14 found the date to be around a whopping 4000 BC, that's 6,000 years ago. It had Minoan inscriptions from the 2nd millennium BC, and they occasionally have been found in various archaeological excavations from Anatolia, meaning Western Turkey, today's Western Turkey, and the Iberian Peninsula, meaning, of course, Spain and Portugal, even to Metcalfe, the Cape of East Coast of the United States. Yes, we even have Greeks having colonized the East Coast of the United States. Amazing. Even the English professor Barry Cunliffe claims that the amber trade was very common among Nordic peoples and the Greeks as early as 2000 BC. And he suggested that there were numerous findings from Essex, England, the Mycenaean cities on the coast of France and Germany, and it's a fantastic story that perhaps there's not enough writings on this and research. I didn't know all this until today. Now, research about Pytheas, the ancient Greek seaman and traveler, gave accounts and journals of his travels to the British Isles in the ancient times. He says Greek colonized in all directions in pre-classic times and as well as up to the north. Now we know Scotland in Gaelic, Alba, is a country part of the United Kingdom today, covering the north third of the island of Great Britain, bordering with England to the south, and otherwise surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. Scotland, as we know, comes from Scoti, the Latin name for the Gaels, the Latin word Scotia, land of the Gaels, land of the Greeks, of course, was initially used to refer to Ireland. By the 11th century, at the latest, Scotia was being used to refer to Gaelic-speaking Scotland north of the River Forth, alongside Albania or Albany, both derived from the Gaelic Alba, and the use of the word Scotland to encompass all of what is now Scotland became common in the Middle Ages. Early history, repeated glaciations covering the entire landmass of modern Scotland destroyed any traces of human habitation that may have existed before the Mesolithic period. It's believed the first post-glacial groups of hunter-gatherers arrived in Scotland around 12,800 years ago as the ice sheet retreated after the last glaciation. Groups of settlers began building their first known permanent houses in Scottish soil around 9,500 years ago, and the first villages around 6,000 years ago. There's a well-preserved village of Skara Bray in the mainland of Orkney. It dates from this period. Neolithic habitat burial ritual sites, particularly common and well-preserved in the Northern Isles and Western Isles. There's a lack of trees there that led to most structures being built from local stone. And that's why we have them we're able to enjoy them today, because they were made from stone. The 2009 discovery in Scotland of the 4,000-year-old tomb with burial treasures at Fort Viot near Perth, capital of Pictish Kingdom, and the 8th and 9th centuries AD is unrivaled between anywhere in Britain. It contains the remains of early bronze ruler laid out on white quartz pebbles and birch bark, and it also discovered for the first time that early bronze people placed flowers in their graves. Scotland may have been part of the late Bronze Age maritime trading culture, as we said, called the Atlantic Bronze Age, including other Celtic nations in the area that became England, France, Spain, and Portugal. Now, after, of course, the ancient Greeks, it was, of course, controlled by the Roman Empire. Scotland during the Roman Empire, the written proto-history of Scotland began with the arrival of the Roman Empire in southern and central Great Britain when the Romans occupied what's now England and Wales, administering it as a province called Britannia. Roman occupations of southern Scotland were a series of brief interludes. According to Roman historian Tacitus, the Caledonians turned to armed resistance on a large scale, attacking Roman forts and skirmishes with their legions, and in a surprise night attack, the Caledonians very nearly wiped out the whole 9th Legion until it was saved by Agricola's cavalry. And that this last part of the reading was, of course, from Wikipedia having to do with Scotland. Now, that's very interesting. Obviously, there's just not enough Hopefully we'll find more on this, and if we do, I'll let you know. This is very interesting. The fact that Scotland was actually the land of ancient Greeks. And as we can see, the language gives it away. The fact that the names of the locations even today go back to ancient Greek and the Minoan period.